Throughout history, the pen has been a tool for the artist, the politician, the author, and most importantly, the dreamer. The ink within is the lifeblood of illustrations, the written word, and mathematical equations, allowing those who would understand a glimpse into worlds other than their own. What worlds will you create while playing with ink? Hi, I'm Plutarch.
And I'm Narrowin.
And we're here with...
Mordred.
And this is Playing with Ink. And we're going to talk about Mordred's world, Faegrimm, and just basically what it means to be a world builder with Mordred, and this wonderful world they've created. Now, this is a question we ask every single one of our guests, and it is, what do you think world building means, and how does it affect you while you're exploring, writing, or playing in your world?
World building is such a broad term in the context of like being a creative, right? Because world building could be anything to do with writing a short story or creating music or art. As long as it's telling some sort of story, I feel like that counts as world building. And that'll happen pretty commonly, and we'll use the example of like Dungeons and Dragons. As a DM, during play, generally you're not gonna have every single tidbit written down in a book, whether it's homebrewed or something modular. So you will have to come up with some details on the fly, and I feel like that also counts as world building.
Yeah.
Definitely, some things are just made up on the fly, like a legion of 3-foot tall turquoise T-Rexes that just roam the countryside, and now that's a part of your world because of the players. Yeah, switch things up.
You gotta switch things up. Yes. Awesome. So, in very general terms, what is this world you've created? What is Faegrimm? If you were to sit down with someone and just go over the bullet points, I know is very hard as a world builder myself. You just want to sit and talk about it forever. And that is what we will do. But in the general terms, what is Faegrimm? What is this world you have created?
That's a difficult question to answer with just bullet points. But if I was gonna bullet point it, as far as like the back of the box for a module, maybe it would probably be something that's like, there's like low magic, high magic. It's probably like a medium magic. A medium magic, ever expanding world. Faegrimm itself is really just one continent with the bottom broken off into a set of islands. So it's not even inherently the entirety of the world, because you can only plan so much at a time, truly. It's just a very fantastical setting, so traditional fantasy, kind of medievally, with a whole bunch of fun modern or exceptional, except in things that are different than your traditional medieval setting, I should say.
Different how so? More like what would we think about, like more chivalry and honor based, or or more darker, grimmer,
That's valid.
So, or are we looking for a dystopian zombie apocalypse type? Like, which direction are we going here?
That's a really good question too. It would probably fall under the more, I guess you could call it, a combination of chivalrous and gritty. Because depending on where you are in the world of Faegrimm will dictate sort of the world that you are exploring. So in certain areas, I would say that it is more of like a monstrous area, which is very rugged and unwelcoming to your normal civilizations that you might have.
Mhm.
So the groups there would be in a more, I wouldn't call it inherently dystopian, but it would be more established hierarchy of power in order to maintain their presence in such a hostile environment. Versus, say, coastal towns where everybody has plenty of food, and unfortunately, slavery is a total thing there. So there's that. It just kind of depends on where you are in the world itself.
So it's very diverse.
It
Is
yeah.
what I'm understanding. There isn't like one general kind of thing that you're going after. You're going after like a world in itself that is very diverse. Like
That's
our
the
world.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
the goal would be to have a diverse world that doesn't get stale, because I don't want every particular region of that world to feel the same. I don't want to have a campaign in one and then a campaign in another. It's a carbon copy, right? It needs to have some kind of freshness.
Mhm.
But broadly, it would probably be very medieval fantasy with magic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Oh
Go
no,
ahead.
I asked my question. You go ahead.
Okay. So, I was just gonna ask, since you mentioned you have created this in a D&D setting,
Hmm.
is this the only setting you have? I mean, is this the only TTRPG system that it works for? Or can it work in any different TTRPG system? And what kind of lore do you take from D&D itself? And how does that affect your world? This is a huge question.
No,
I'm
that's
just
a great question. So the world was created with D&D in mind as the base. However, I mean, it could easily be adjusted to any other fantasy-esque TTRPG system like Pathfinder easily. It would be very easy to just switch it over. If there's a particular race that's, D&D specific, you could just exchange that with another similar race from another system. I think you might have some issues if you went a little bit like modern, maybe like Star Wars system or something. But I wouldn't say it's not doable. The world is fairly agnostic as far as the system is regarded.
Excellent.
Cool.
One question I had, so when we found out you were going to be on the show, I started doing a little bit of sleuthing, which is just my thing.
Oh.
I wanted to know. So I started watching one of your most
Oh, I'm
recent
so
videos.
sorry.
Because first off, it was
How
like,
was it?
oh, it was good. So one of your most recent videos, you're sitting there and you're going over what to put inside of a certain city. Now, I latched onto that because I was like, I thought I was the only person that did this kind of thing. But then I thought this might be a good question. I'm sorry to blindside you with this. So
Hit me.
when you're building these cities or these regions or things like that, because you mentioned diversity and things like that, you don't want one campaign to start in, say, a city on the eastern side of the continent to feel the same, because the culture is going to be different, the obvious atmosphere, the weather, all these things, the politics. How do you decide what to stick into these cities? Is it important enough? Will it drive the story forward? What? Because I think you are putting like an apothecary, and you were sitting there going like debating with yourself, should I put an apothecary or like? I was like,
right.
So I was like, that is it. I was like, is it important? And I think that's where this question kind of arose from. It's like, how do you approach that term or dilemma?
I'm gonna have to address that a couple ways specifically, which is such a good question, by the way. I'll go top down. So like, when you're creating, let's go ahead and say the continent as a whole, it's going to have different biomes.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're going to divide that up with some mountains, rivers, whatever, and then now you have regions that you can work with. So I've divided up Faegrimm into 5 regions,
and
for my own.
And what are those 5 regions? If you can just give us a highlight reel.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, three of them are well, actually 4 of them are technically unnamed because they have not had a campaign. The region itself is unnamed, though. Region 1, which would be the top left of the map. Not that you would see that here, but
We can
That's-
we can put that on YouTube. On the YouTube
Yeah.
version.
Put it on YouTube.
Podcast
Okay,
version,
well,
sorry guys. Sorry. You're going to have to check it
Yeah.
out on YouTube.
Go check it out on YouTube. But if you as you can see here on this wonderful map, Region 1 is unnamed, but it has a lot of lore built into it. There is a number of coastal cities. As it's up, it's a giant continent, so there's edges where the ocean meets, of course. There are 3 major coastal cities. There is a swamp on the kind of western end of it that's divided off by some mountains. And then on the right side, there is kind of a borderline with the monster region, which is Region 2. And that is where there is sort of like a less policed city. It's more of a free market, has a lot of thieves guild vibes kind of thing.
Nice.
So as I'm coming into this region here, this is a lush, temperate region overall. The northern half of that is fairly temperate and nice, and it has lots of fields and farms. So the people there, in my mind, this is the first one I did, and I wanted to make it very medieval. So it has an entire matriarchy. This gets into some funny stuff because for this, when we develop each government, we have a list of different government types, and I basically just kind of scroll through it until one hits my interest. So for the kingdom, quote unquote, we ended up making a matriarchy that keeps a number of male suitors, and it's a whole deep thing, which is very entertaining.
Do I get Menzo Baronzon vibes here, or
Well, they're kept in a separate keep named the Bullpen, so you can
Sorry.
take away from that whatever you want.
all right? So Menzo Baronzon ish
Ish.
Underdark.
But to south of that is a mountainous area that has a swamp underneath it, and then that's a city that chat named Jonestown. It's a little monster town. I know. So it's a little monster town, very bayou, very doom 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 doom.
I love it.
As Jonestown is, I guess.
It's
before
a
all
great time. And so that's its own, like, it's within the same region, right? But it's so varied from the chivalry and the knights and the traditional marketplaces of the northern part, because now you're in a bayou with, Papa Goblin or something.
Okay.
But off track, I sort of just randomly pick and choose whatever the government might be, whatever the situation is. I do draw a lot of inspiration from my wonderful chat whenever we do this live, but sometimes we don't do it live, and I still draw that inspiration from a random list and just roll with it.
I've been in your chat several times, and it's always fun.
It's so chaotic in there.
It's so chaotic, but I love what comes out of it.
So, you go ahead, Plutarch.
Okay, yeah. And speaking of chat, how is it world building with an audience and with audience participation? And how does that impact your writing? I know before this we were just talking about sometimes writing not on stream, not with an audience. But when you are writing on stream or on like a video or something and people leave comments, people are in the chat, what does that like do to your writing? I know otherwise it can, for me personally, it can make me very nervous, but
you do fine.
Yeah,
how does it feel?
You do great, by the way.
You do. You're good.
Oh, thanks.
I think when you're in the hot seat as the streamer in world building scenarios, it can be a little unnerving, to be honest, because you're managing a whole bunch of giddy little goblins who want to see the content get into the world, right?
Yeah,
I love my
yeah.
giddy little goblins.
I love them too.
Um, that being said, I do think when you're having audience participation, it can be difficult to get a lot of depth on an idea. Mostly because I feel like when you have an audience, they always say some random twisted thing that takes you off track, and then you now have a really good idea that you want to work on, but now you have like 8 more really good ideas that you want to work on, and so you try to pick one, but then the audience gives you another 8 ideas that are really cool from that one. It just spirals. Um,
Yeah.
so when I'm looking to kind of have a broad overview of a region or an area, or just kind of get some ideas for perhaps monsters or governments or like the intricacies of some factions, perhaps. That's when your audience is going to be your best friend, because they really do come up with the goofiest things. I never would have come up with a matriarchy with a bullpen, guys. Like, let's be real. That would not have happened. I love it so much. But, but if I need to get real nitty gritty and like have some real good details, like this person knows this person because of this, and this particular like subset or branch of, I don't know, the Thieves Guild, then I need to write that myself without influence, only because I'll get distracted easily.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's probably the best way I could answer that question.
Well, for me, I find it interesting because I use my audience for broad strokes and then I go in and do the nitty-gritty. So it's interesting that you almost do the opposite and you do broad strokes first and then you use your audience for the nitty-gritty. Um, what is that? What is that
Well,
like a process for you,
well,
or is
kind
it
of,
just
sort
kind of
of.
on the fly?
Well, the nitty gritty, I'll do myself for
Yeah.
sure. But they can be really good for coming up with goofy one-off ideas that I wouldn't have thought of. Sorry, I lost track of your question because I got distracted. That's how easy this happens.
Yes, yes, I understand. As someone with ADHD, I completely understand. um But yeah, so I just think it's interesting. This is such a new thing, I think. Not necessarily new, but when I say new, I mean in the past like 8 years new that people have started like world building online. Um,
Hmm,
and of course, I think it started with like for D&D specifically, started with Critical Role. Um,
that would
so
track.
are there any like are there any big not I want to say fandoms, but like
Ooh,
IPs that you take
yeah.
inspiration from when you're world building.
That's a good question too. I will say, for myself, I did some level of world building prior to my discovery of Critical Role, for example.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
that being said, love Critical Role, great time.
yeah,
Um, Inspirationally, really, it is difficult to come up with an idea that is specifically unique and the first time it's ever been done, right?
Hmm.
Everything
yes,
is a
Yeah.
derivative of something else,
Yep.
and that's okay. Like, it can be just a little bit different. It could be a different flavor and still be a very enjoyable activity or situation or place. In fact, if you add in, I've found if I add in something familiar with just a little bit of a different flavor, my players, if they recognize it, get excited because they recognize what it is and they're excited to enjoy that different than how they consumed it before. Um, so I would say a lot of inspiration is like books, shows. Um, I named the first campaign I ever publicly did. I named the world Lodos after Record of Lodos War, which is an anime series from like the 80s and a manga
Oh.
series
yeah. I've heard of
previously.
it. I haven't watched it myself, but I have friends who are really into anime, so
It's
I haven't heard of that one.
it's an old one. It's not super popular, but it is one of my favorites.
Mhm. Cool.
So
to check
for
it out.
example, that's exactly why everybody takes a little bit of something from all the stuff they enjoy, and why shouldn't you? Be creative with it.
Yeah.
Mash things up.
It's
Split them apart.
It is extremely hard to get away from the modernized version of fantasy, which is what Tolkien came up with. So it's everything seems to draw from that and before him, he drew it from so many different directions and so many mythos.
Beowulf.
Beowulf compounded into that. And what
Yeah.
we're doing now in the modern time is basically taking what he did and spreading it back. It's like an hourglass, is how I sometimes imagine it. He took it from he put it right here, and then now we're in our modern time spreading it out this way. So
that's a really good analogy, actually.
So there's my ADHD kicking in.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's do it. It's all kicking our ADHD.
ADHD.
It just went the idea I had. I was like, hourglass gone.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. So one thing I like to ask, you talk about I think we hinted on this. Sometimes the players actually come up with stuff. And it's not always. It's kind of like the goblins in the chat.
Yep.
And we joked about it at the beginning of the episode, but sometimes the players come up with stuff and it all of a sudden becomes canon. I actually talked to a fellow DM recently who he's starting to have a bit of a problem with that because sometimes the players push it. So this might be a question for both of you. When is it too much? When do you have to? Like, you are the world builder. You created this. It is your world. At what point do you say, because you have all these outside influences, especially like chat and things like that, and all of them are trying to vie for, and they're participating in this, and they're creating it, a world. They're a part of the world. So when do you have to say enough is enough, or start putting a leash on things when it comes to creative rights in your universe?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go first. You go first.
Okay. I got you. I'll go. I have examples even.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
That's what I was hoping for.
Get the juice. Get the dirt.
So I'm gonna call out some players, but it's fine.
Yes.
When they listen to this, they're gonna love it.
Oh, I love it.
As far as so I'll say, as far as world building goes, it's the world building portion rather than in game. We'll start with that.
Okay.
I have a lot of guests that come on to my stream, and they hang out with me while we do it. We talk to chat. We just have banter, and that's where a lot of ideas come from. So I've had a couple of people on there pretty consistently, and one of them being a fellow streamer that goes by Snackybus. And Snackybus and I have I would even say pretty evenly generated the entire region 1 through our shenanigans. Eventually, at some point, if there's something that I don't like, either from chat or even from Snackybus, and I don't want to write that doesn't sound entertaining or interesting to me, I will just say so. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't think that's gonna work. That doesn't make sense to me.
It begins to break down the immersion, I guess is a word for it, or the yes. real. It's not real. We're not walking around. This is not a real world we're walking around in. The 3-headed wyvern that just flew over our heads in game is not. There's a suspension of disbelief. That's the word I'm looking for. But there is a point where something is going to break that, I think, is what I'm trying to comment here.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, as far as the world building goes, I just nix it if it's something that I don't think would happen in this world, or I don't want to write it. Now, alternatively, that is a controlled environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a more chaotically uncontrolled environment is when you're in game, and I have a couple specifics that I would love to bring up.
Floor is yours.
So
Yeah.
so I was informed that I was being pretty nice to my players as far as combats go in my first streamed campaign, and so I shoved them into an arena or lured them, however you want to phrase that. They went through a couple rounds of fun combats and whatnot, and I ended with a young dragon as the final enemy.
Mhm.
The players, I made the mistake of giving the dragon the ability to talk.
Yes.
I
know
made this
exactly.
mistake.
I know exactly where this is going.
It's on me. Like, I know I messed up.
I don't.
players-
So tell me.
The players worked together, putting their weapons down, being totally like chill with this angry, beat up, abused dragon. And one of my players, another streamer who goes by Everyar,
Yeah.
managed to roll, I believe, because they were like, I wanna, be friends with the dragon or whatever. I'm like, okay, sure, roll for it. And if she rolls a nat 20, I'll let it happen. It's probably not gonna happen. She rolled a nat 20,
Mm-hmm.
obtained.
Yes.
They left the arena with the dragon. The dragon was a pet. It got named Ignatia, and it followed them around for like 5 more sessions. It was a whole. So I then had to make a voice on the fly because you can't control that. And then the whole story, and there was like a mom dragon, and it was looking for. It was a whole thing, man. It was not.
That's
It
awesome.
should not have happened. Another
That
one.
reminds me. Yeah, go ahead.
What's that remind you?
Oh, it reminds me of the time I was playing my Icewind Dale campaign with some of my closest friends, and the Boulé they were supposed to fight. They decided they wanted to befriend it. And so they kept rolling. They rolled, I kid you not, 3 natural 20s.
Ooh.
And I was like, I have to let them befriend it. I mean, that's 3 natural 20s. So now
Yep.
its name is Gordon. And it acts like a puppy. So, and it loves shovels, oddly enough. But yeah, that just reminds me of that.
Why does it love shovels?
Who knows? I just said it
Okay,
loves shovels.
sure.
You both are
That's
far
it.
nicer than I am.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
Far nicer than I am.
they looked at me
Like-
with puppy dog eyes and said, "Please let us have the Boulé." And I was like, okay, here's your pet Boulé. I can't.
I'll say I don't have to offer a roll, right? Like I
Yeah.
can say no, that's not an option, and
Yeah.
they'll go with it. That's my prerogative. It's in my rule set when you sign up to be in one of my games. Do not argue with the DM.
Yes. Yeah.
That is in
absolutely.
there. So
Mhm.
like, but I also want to. I'm more of a rule of cool DM,
Me too.
and I think
Yeah,
that's funny.
yeah.
Me too.
Because that's the second example is the current campaign that we are playing. My players about 15 episodes ago took a baby guard, befriended baby guard, like he was a young man who was very naive, to be
Oh.
clear.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Not
okay.
like an actual baby.
Not an
with
actual
armor.
baby. I
Yeah,
should be
I
clear.
was thinking like a small baby toddler in a full
They
suit
did
of
not
armor.
steal a child. This kidnapping was not part of the situation. Well,
That's
that's not inherently true. So they befriended. They went to a gala. They got in trouble, and they were assigned the youngest guard to watch them because the regular guards didn't want to deal with the party. So young naive guard is guarding the players. They end up befriending him and convincing him that they need an escort home. So he escorts them home, and then they get him drunk, and then
Oh,
he
God.
he never left. They ended up putting him through so much hell that he had an existential crisis, gave up his guardship, became an adventurer, and is now contemplating what he wants to do with his life.
I love it.
So anyway, that's Joe.
Story of Joe.
Story of Joe. He is literally he's a DM PC that I never thought I would have. I can't get rid of him. I've tried to get rid of him twice. He's stuck in there.
Yeah, sometimes the players just
I
won't
remember watching
let NPC
one
go.
stream I remember watching one stream, and I think you were trying to kill him, and I think the other players were like, or you were
Oh
trying to
yeah.
do something with him, and the other players were like, "No, don't do that. We will fight you, like physically, to make sure Joe stays alive."
They will kill their characters before they let Joe die. It's wild to me. They are so attached, which is awesome. I think it's so cool that they're so attached to a particular character that they would sacrifice themselves, so to speak, for that character, which is kind of neat in its own sense, but I digress.
Yeah. It feels like you're immersed, when the players are really attached to your world, that they've really befriended people within the world. So I think, honestly, I love it when that happens in campaigns. And because I get really attached to my player characters, and I get really attached to NPCs. So I think it's awesome when players respond with that attachment and attached to your world, because it's very cool. It's almost like you're sharing the world, the real world through your eyes. It's like you're sharing your experiences and stuff. Yeah, I just think it's neat when players become attached to the world the DM presents.
It's really cool to see how immersed people can become, especially when it's a very story-driven situation. I think one of the biggest compliments you can get when you're running a game is just players. You get like the sniffles from a player if they get real into it. Or they get angry if something bad happens. Not in a way where it's like they're mad at you, right? That's not the point. But like in game, the BBEG just did something or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you terrify them.
Or you terrify them.
Yeah. If you can.
You know what? All I got to do is chuckle, and it sets people on edge, which I think is great.
All I have to do is look down at my notes, and they're all like, "What is she doing? What is she doing? Why is she checking her notes?"
Oh no!
I would just sit there and be quiet and look at them. Just.
Are you sure?
Roll 1d20.
No, I wouldn't even. I would just stare at them, and then like they could be their own chuckle heads, like saying something and joking, and then all of a sudden one starts looking at me. I'll just be. Look down real quick.
I love it.
Just sometimes I would just roll dice for no reason.
There's no reason to roll them, but man, does it!
They all of a sudden start. Yeah, they start paying attention. Like perception check.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And this is an off the bat question too. You mentioned earlier how you players, when something familiar to them is in the world, they start to love it. What other ways do you get your players immersed into the world?
This is a great question also. I've had, well, if you're not super familiar, I have all of my sessions are online, right? And we don't use actual face cams. We use little PNG tubers or VTubers that represent our characters or whatnot. So it can be difficult to tell how immersed someone is through that particular venture. But I find that I'm able to provide a level of immersion because it's an online session a little bit more so than I would be able to in a in-person session, because I can set it up pretty well so that each player can ambiently hear something in the distance, but they can all hear it at the same level. I could so like rain or distant rain clouds or like the ocean spray coming off of a ship can really set the like what they're doing or what's going on in the world around them. Versus say at the same time I can change the music maybe from something light with the ocean spray and the distant clouds. Maybe that storm arrives and now it's a heavy rain. the ship is creaking, and they get these really great sounds of lightning and thunder, and the waves becoming louder, and it really helps set that immersion. I also like to provide images that I have on screen for my players to see. Sometimes it's a battle map, which is great if I have one, because I make a lot of those. But sometimes I just find an image that is what I'm looking for and kind of adapt my storyline to fit the image a little bit cleaner, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the image, they have the audio, and then they have me telling them this crazy thing that is happening, and I can change and modulate my voice to really bring them into it. So that would be how I would immerse my players.
That's very good. I think it's a very unique thing playing D&D online.
Any TTRPG online, honestly.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Because I feel like you are able to control. You have a screen, and you're able to control the screen almost to like the smallest detail. So I think it's a very unique experience playing D&D or any TTRPG online. But is there any things that you wish that would incorporate better with D&D online that maybe stand out when you play D&D in person or TTRPGs in person?
When you play in person, there's pros and cons to both, right? Like the pros for online is what I've already mentioned. Mm-hmm. The cons being I don't get to see people necessarily. And even if I do, it's through a camera, and that's not quite the same as being at a table and me saying, I don't know, you find someone bleeding out and you stare them in the eyes and wait for them to do something because you are putting them on the spot, not with words, not with like an icon on a screen. You are looking at that person waiting for their response.
Yeah.
So I would use the word intimate, maybe. A table setting being more intimate.
Yeah. I find it hard to DM when I don't do when I DM online and I do not use a camera, because I feel like I can't do voices that well. And I feel like I DM through my body language, and so I replace like the voices with my body language with my eyes that bring out these characters that the player characters aren't playing. I mean, you've been in a game with me. I used a camera.
A lot of facial expressions and hand motions, right?
Yeah. So usually when I'm playing D&D in real life, I stand up and I walk around the table while I'm DMing, which is very strange.
That's cool.
But I interact because I find it very easy to express myself through my facial expressions, and maybe that's just me. I've always been an expressive girl, so but it's very interesting to me that that you strictly do you've made this way to play D&D online that that is just as cool as playing in real life. So yeah.
It kind of came as a necessity, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my initial games were with people like my friends, but they live across the country or in other countries. And so like we're not going to meet once a week, you know. That's not going to make sense, so we had to do it online, and it sort of it became the norm. I think with anything it becomes practice, right? Like you walk around the table, and probably doing that in some capacity would either encourage or unnerve your players depending on what you're describing, right? So,
yes.
But I guess I've been able to. Luckily, I can do a lot of voices, so it works out in my favor.
Yeah, I'm trying to do voices more, but the only voice I can really do is a Southern accent, and that's because I'm from the South.
So
that tracks.
that was actually my strength going into DMing. I grew up loving to make different voices and things like that. And I don't know if it's just me being crazy because, well, my day job
Yeah.
for the longest time was before they stuck me in the office was I would deliver. I still deliver parts and things like that for our family's salvage yard. But so I'd be in the truck and I would just start talking like Stitch or
That's exactly it, too.
or just like yes, go and give me a heel, or just like or Scottish accent or something like that. You know, that's not
That's
good.
exactly what my brother does.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
Actually, the Stitch one was really, really solid.
Oh well, I got that from when Lord of the Rings came out. I realized that I could spot on do Gollum.
Yeah.
So, and Stitch is not that far from Gollum.
He's really not. He's right there.
Smeagol, why does it cry, Smeagol?
That's so
Us. Master tricks us. Course he did. See, so it's not dead on Andy Serkis, but so
yeah, it's
but
close.
that was my strength going into that. So I was like, I can do the whole voices part, so I don't have to worry about that. I was more worried about the storytelling part, and I had to actually teach myself that's a difficult skill for. I think we actually talked to Elliot about this too. It's weird.
Yeah.
These questions come back around. The storytelling part that you have to basically wrap your players around, and you were talking about it as well. So it's not just the voices. You stand up like you do Plutarch. You know, you have these different. You have every DM has a tool set that we pull from, and we use these things for better or worse to get our players into the world that we have provided for them. And it's not always successful. Sometimes we fall flat on our face. Sometimes we think the funny voice we made, or the dark, grim voice we make, or the atmosphere we're trying to provide for them, it just falls flat, and that sucks when it does. But if you just keep going and keep honing these skills and sharpening your tool set, eventually it'll get better.
Yeah,
I would agree very wholeheartedly. Storytelling is such a big part of being the game master of any TTRPG, because you are providing the canvas on which your players are playing on, right?
That's a good terminology for it right there.
So like they're doing the brush strokes, they're deciding what they want to do, how they want to do it. You're the sounding board. I want to do this. Well, this is how that happens. Now what? And then it moves on. And you can provide that through NPCs or situations or ambient noise or voices or whatever. Yeah. And you're right. Every GM has a tool set they pull from.
Yep.
And they're a little varied from GM to GM.
Yeah.
It's not always the same.
Which is why I love playing with all kinds of different GMs and playing with all kinds of different players. I love seeing the diversity in D&D because it's how that person perceives the world, and all these skills that they have that I might not have and that they're using, and I get to see them almost perform in their own way, expressing themselves in their own way. I just think it's beautiful that people are able to do this, and that D&D has given people this ability to express themselves and, like you were saying, use their skill sets that they may not have been able to use. And yeah, so it's so cool.
Yeah, for me, I finally found an outlet. I was the weird kid talking to himself in different voices, and lo and behold, I found D&D. Wow.
I was the weird kid that would walk by herself on the playground muttering about like trees that would talk, or like spies and like stuff, and people would be like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Nothing. Leave me alone."
You don't know.
Heart,
you don't know what's happening in my head.
Did this is a question for you two. Did you two do theater?
No. I wish I had.
Ish.
It's interesting.
Because I was I performed in like children's plays and stuff because
yeah.
everyone does. But I never did like serious theater. I had a lot of friends that did, So,
Mm.
so I
Theater
kind of,
by association.
yeah, I kind of like what's that word? Mitosis, or
Oh,
when the water like
osmosis. Osmosis.
osmosis. Mitosis
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
split thing. Osmosis. I kind of got theater knowledge from them, but I honestly think this is really weird. But I honestly think most of my DMing skills just came from playing pretend with my brother and my friends.
Truth. Because I
Yeah,
used to play pretend with my brothers as well. We'd have
yeah,
like little swords and have a whole story happening, right?
yeah. And I didn't stop playing pretend until like high school, which is kind of crazy. But
Nothing wrong with that.
me
Yep.
yeah, but me and my best friend, we pretended that we had this whole other world in our heads.
Yeah.
And um we would act like it was happening in real time at our school. So we would walk past each other in the hallway and whisper to each other like stuff is happening
That's
in this
cool.
world we've created, and that was happening in real time. So our friends thought we were weird, and so whenever we would sit in the corner and whisper to ourselves about fake poachers or wolves coming after us or whatever, they were like, just ignore them over there. They're doing their own thing. But that's honestly where I didn't do theater. I just think my DMing skills, quote unquote, just came from playing pretend with some of my closest friends. So, and my brother, who I'm very close with. So, yeah.
I don't know where it really began besides just falling in love with stories and like seeing Lord of the Rings in theaters and 1999 and things like that. I daydreamed a lot. I daydreamed all the time about different worlds or a world that I had created in my head and things like that. And to the point where my teacher in 5th grade recommended me. I think did I mention this last time? Recommended me for summer school because I was falling behind and I was just zoning out so much.
Yeah.
But I I really don't know how it developed because I grew up. I was a I don't know if this might Plutot, this might strike you as a surprise, but I was a punk skater kid.
Punk skater.
Punk skater
I love
kid.
it.
The tight shirts, the skinny. Yes,
Yeah, sorry, that was my watch.
Siri doesn't
Siri.
agree with me. She wants to
Siri
get in on
didn't
it.
agree with you.
So yeah,
Did you do Gollum voices while you were skating?
no, no. My friends would have thought that would have been a bad mistake. They already made fun of me for loving Lord of the Rings.
Oh no!
Oh yeah,
I love
yeah.
it.
See, the Two Towers came out the same weekend or same week or something like that, right around 8 Mile. So,
Oh yeah.
So I was the kid who proudly went to go see the Two Towers.
Yeah.
And then,
of course.
and then I came back to middle school, and they were like, "Man, I got to see my bigger brother took me to see 8 Mile." It was like, I was like, "Well, I went to see Two Towers." Like, man, that's so stupid. That's the dumbest thing. They'd use far worse language because it was the early 2000s,
Yeah,
and they were
right.
they were prepping for Xbox Live, and
True. What a time! What a time!
Yeah. So yeah, I've never really thought about this. I don't even know how. I guess it was just all suppressed. Because even when I had a friend in college who first started telling me about roleplay and things like that in World of Warcraft RP servers. So
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not into that, man. I'm not into that. And lo and behold, no, I was into that. I was much more into that than I thought.
He was lying to himself.
I very much was. So it's weird. I suppressed it.
Yeah.
And then it just came forward. So maybe that's maybe someone out there has a similar story where you just suppressed that and you were your friends around you would have made fun of you, and then finally when you got out of that toxic environment, and
a lot of negative peer pressure.
Yeah, a lot of negative peer pressure to not express the things you love or want to take a chance in. So that's why I wish I was a theater kid. I wish I could have, because I probably would have been pretty good.
Yeah, you probably would have.
I feel like a lot of people who play any TTRPG at all, especially game masters are all theater kids, so it's fascinating to me that neither of you were.
Yeah.
Really wish I
not a
would have.
theater kid. Are you? Well, how much theater did you do?
I took 2 years of theater.
Interesting.
Ah,
I did some in junior high,
Cool.
and was quote unquote so good I got shuffled into the intermediate class in high school as a freshman. So that was a whole
Hey, you were a
thing.
gifted kid.
yeah, there you
Gifted
go.
kid.
Nice.
I wasn't allowed to do the actual productions at school because of a home life thing, but like I
Yeah.
was good at theater, so there was that.
Nice.
But I'm not sure necessarily when mine would have started, but in a similar vein to your high school pretend stories, like my little group of high school friends, because I only had a couple, we created an entire like symbology thing, and we assigned elements to different portions of the symbol, and we would each take an element, like that was our
a
element
cult.
or whatever. Essentially, truly, with like 4 members.
My first cult.
My
my
first cult.
But yeah, we would do that, and we would just kind of pretend that we had the powers or whatever it might be.
That's awesome.
My first introduction to anything TTRPG related, and I'm not sure if either of you will recognize this, but there was a D&D knockoff in the 90s that was very short-lived called Dragon Strike.
Mm-mm.
It had a really horrible CGI VHS tape in it that you could watch, and it was a adventure. It was bad. It was so bad, but I loved that thing.
I'm gonna have to research this.
You're Googling it now. Hold on.
Please, if you're listening to this podcast, oh man, I wonder if there's a YouTube link to that video. Anyway, it was a horribly bad CGI, bad acting, all around video of an adventure example. And then
That's
you could
awesome.
run that example as a module in the Dragon Strike game, which came with like these little plastic pieces like you would get nowadays for D&D.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then like a double-sided game board, but it was a town and then a castle on the other side, like an evil castle. What a time.
I see it right here. Oh yeah, that's going in the YouTube video. What is this? And there's also a bunch of there's a bunch of videos
so
looking like they're complaining about it.
Oh, it wasn't good. Let me be very clear. It was such a bad.
The weirdest D&D games, weirder spinoff.
There was like a guy in a black turtleneck in a full black room who was the narrator. All you could see was like his hands and his head, and he's like, it's like
so
you
it's
can
like
now
those weird 90s, early 2000s
yeah
psychedelic like vibe almost.
And now you can play Dragon Strike or something like that. It was so bad. Anyway, moving on with my terrible childhood story.
I love it.
I'm not really sure when I started really getting into, I guess, pretend or D&D or anything like that. I think it just happened.
Yeah, that's
Probably
how I
the
think it
love
is
of
for
RPGs.
most people. For most people, is they just discover something that they love, while just doing whatever, and then this like small spark that they feel starts to turn into more stuff, and then they get to explore these skills that they have that they never thought they were going to get to put to use. And yeah, I think it's like I was saying earlier, I think it's super cool and I love it. So,
it's I kind of envy both of you because I had these worlds. I just would never speak it out loud to anybody.
Yeah.
That's
kind of sad.
I was exiled as a child, so like you got in with the cool kids with the skateboards. I was the one who was made fun of and like hit with skateboards, so like
we weren't the popular group living in.
I feel like there was never really a popular group,
no,
except
were
for
just
like
all depressed.
that one group, right?
Yeah, that one group that is just like the. But yeah, we I don't know. Again, I really wish I had opened up a bit more because I was lying to myself.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean that's just basically what it is. I was not myself. I did enjoy skateboarding, but
I'd love to see you skateboard.
So skateboarding video included in podcasts?
Oh
YouTube?
god,
Skateboard
I
video?
got my boards downstairs in the garage. I got them from my grandparents' house. When the guy Scott at our local game store, Plutarch,
Yeah.
he's always he figured out that I used to skate, so now that's
Yeah.
all me and him talk about when I walk in there. So
I love it. I love it.
so, but yeah, it's. I think I got some trauma I need to work out.
Yeah, apparently.
The YouTube just made me realize. So
Yeah.
You know what? You know what TTRPGs really are? They're just unpaid therapy.
Yes.
Let's
yes.
be real.
Yeah, 100%.
I just need to have a session. I need to work some stuff out.
You need to sit down with your DM and be like, "This is what I need to."
What if
This
I
or a
am
DM.
What if I am my DM?
You are the DM.
I got
I'll
a
be the
couch
DM
back
for
there
you.
that I could sit here and talk to me. I can go back and forth, and I can play both roles. That
Excellent.
That's actually an exercise I could do.
Yes, do it. I dare you.
You just want me. That might be even too weird for me, but I might. When this camera goes off, I might talk to myself.
Okay, talking to yourself. I've worked in warehouses by myself for like 16 hours a day. I talk to stuff, inanimate objects, guys. Like, is this not normal?
No, I'll do it.
I talk to my pet. But I guess
that's alive.
That's and that dog is precious too. He is so cute.
Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy, I love her.
She. Oh, I'm sorry.
She. No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, this has actually been pretty fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Apparently, there's Chandler has some unresolved trauma.
Yeah, I just never talked about it. Okay, you two have made
And
me.
how does that make you feel?
And yeah,
kind of like a douchebag for all those years. I probably was.
probably, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're not a douchebag anymore.
I never thought you were a douchebag.
Thank you. But no, it's and I just hope anybody listening who has been through the same thing I have, maybe reach out to me, because that's if you had a similar experience where all these like things that were suppressed, and then you were probably robbing yourself and probably robbing enjoyment from friends you could have made, like with this interest. Like I wish if my high school did have theater, I should have got involved.
Mm-hmm.
So and then like all these extra skills that I know I'm pretty good at now. I'm not the best, but maybe I could have done something else with it. So, and that's all because of TTRPGs, world building, this stuff that finally cracked me out of that shell, and here we are today.
Nerdum.
Beautiful story.
Nerdum.
In the comments, guys, just put your most repressed high school story.
Be nice. don't.
Maybe not. Maybe not the worst one.
Yeah, let's
keep it PG.
Yeah,
keep it PG.
So, yeah, this has been fun.
This has been great. Thank you so much for coming on, Mordred. It's always so fun.
Of course. Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a very entertaining conversation.
We told you it gets more relaxed after the first initial 20 minutes. I think after that we just all started going like that. But
yeah,
very off the wall. It was a great time though. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. Well, we will see you guys next time on Playing with Ink. Oh, and Mordred, before we end, where can we find you? Just
that's
just plug yourself. Plug yourself. Go.
Bet. I am on Twitch. I'm on Patreon. I am on YouTube. I am on pretty much all the social medias, and you can find me with the handle BoldMordred on any and all of these things.
Sweet. And I will link stuff in the description. So, yeah. Anyway, next time on Playing with Ink, we will have another guest.
Yep.
And yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.